you got something else that takes place. Jesus continues. Watch. Look what he says here. Same thing we just read over in Revelation. Now, look at this. Let me back up just one verse right here. So he comes to the end of the first 3.5 years, right? The beginning of sorrows. The first 3.5 years are over. Look at how he starts verse 9. It's a time word. Then, when the 3.5 years is over, when the first 3.5 years, the beginning of sorrows is complete, he's talking to Jews. The day here is the Antichrist and the false prophet. Okay, that's the day. Will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you. Who's the you? The you is the Jews. How I know that? Who is he talking to? The disciples asked him a question about what was going to happen to the nation of Israel. So he's making a reference to Jews. Okay, let me show you something. Let's go look at this from one of the Old Testament prophets. See if it lines up with what we say here with Jesus. Just go look right here. Right here. Okay. What did he say? He says, awake, O sword, against my shepherd. That is Jesus, God talking about Jesus. Against the man. There's a man out there who is God's companion. Do you know what that word means? According to the concordance, it's called God's equal. Wait a minute, man. How in the world can somebody be equal with God? Jesus says, I and my Father are one. He is equal with God, friends. Why? Because he is God. Says the Lord of hosts, strike the shepherd, strike Jesus Christ, there's your death, burial, resurrection, and the sheep will be scattered. Then I will turn my hands against the little ones. The little ones, yeah, the rest of the Jews. And it shall come to pass in all the land. Now, verse 8 picks off. Now, verse 7 ends with Rome in AD 70. That's what Jesus is making a reference to through the prophet Zechariah. Jesus dies, then he turns his hand against the little ones, the Jews. What happened? They get kicked out of the land. Rome renames the area. It's no longer called Israel. They rename it Palestine. Friends, this is history. You can go read it up in any history book concerning what Rome did, Caesar back in that day did in that time. So this is history. Go find it in a history book. Now, right here, Jesus turned to the tribulation. Right here. And it's actually the Great Tribulation. Jesus makes a turn. So he talks about his crucifixion. Then he talks about what happens in AD 70. Then he talks about right here that 2/3 in it, in what? In Israel. The it is Israel, shall be cut off and die. 2/3 of the Jews in the Great Tribulation in the second half is going to die. But the 1/3 is the remnant. And God says of this remnant, these are the people that he called. These are his children. He's going to refine them. He's going to test them. and they will call on his name, and I will answer them. Say yeah, this 1/3 is my people, and each and every single one of them is going to say, the Lord is my God. Do the 2/3 say that? No. No. Who says it? The 1/3 says it. Then why don't the 2/3 say it? Because they're not his people, but they're Jews. What in the world does that have to do with it? You don't become a child of God through natural birth or some ethnic group or some religious group. You become a child of God through election. God chooses you. He chooses the 1/3. He says the others are going to die. Why? Because they deserve it. The 1/3 deserve to die. But God says, who brings them through? Do the 1/3 determine they're going to make it on their own? No, man. No. What happens? God, will bring the 1/3 through the fire of the great tribulation. Who does that? Who preserves them? Who picks them out? God does. That's what the books say, friends. I know people got a problem with this. I know, but it's okay. It's okay because that's what the book teaches. I'm sorry. I know people don't like that, but okay, whatever. You know, that's what the book teach. So you go back here to Matthew 24, and it matches with what Jesus said perfectly. Look at what he says. Then they will deliver you up. Who will be delivered? Up in tribulation and kill you. And you're going to be hated. Listen, the Jews, by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended. This is what I was telling you. During that final 3.5 years when they're starting to be killed, many will be offended and they will betray one another and will hate one another. You see that? Now, I want to make this clear. Jesus is talking to Jews. This right here is talking about people within the nation of Israel, the 2/3 and the 1/3. But the same thing is going to happen when Jesus talked about it in Luke. He talked about it happening among the nations as well. But in Matthew, he's sort of confined it only to the Jews. And will hate one another. Then what? Many false prophets. Now you know he's talking about the Jews because false prophets are always associated with Israel in the Bible. Will rise up and deceive many who? Many Jews. And because of lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. The love of many? Yes. Remember the two greatest commandments. But again, folks, please, if you don't associate this with Israel, you're going to have an extremely hard time understanding this. Why? Because that's all he's talking about. If you try to plug in any other people into this group, into Israel, this is not going to make sense. But if you leave it exactly the way Jesus is explaining it, talking specifically about Israel, then it makes sense. How? Because now you have false prophets. Why will they be betraying one another? Because the Antichrist is going around killing them. He's going around killing them, friends. That's why they're betraying. Some of them had already taken the mark. And they were trying to keep themselves from being killed. What they didn't understand is that The devil have a better plan for them. Because if he kills them all, what does that do? That allows Satan to claim victory over God. So will he leave any Jew who betrayed another alive? No. He wants to kill them all. And the reason for killing them all is so that he can call God a liar. Remember, Jesus is coming back to do what? Be anointed King of the Jews, to rule over the Jewish nation, to fulfill the prophecy God gave in 2 Samuel to David, where a descendant of his seed will be a perpetual king over the nation of Israel. This is what the devil is trying to avoid. He's trying to stop that plan. How do you stop it? You stop it by killing every single Jew. If you can kill every Jew, then Jesus have no one to rule over. And all those prophecies that God gave about Jesus ruling over Israel and the Jewish people, they all go kaput. And now the devil can say, you are a liar, God, just like I am a liar. Move over. I'm sitting on this throne. All right. Now, with that in mind, let's look at it, as Jesus put it, from a Jewish perspective. Then there are false prophets coming up, will rise up and deceive many. Where do you find this at? They're in Jerusalem. This is happening in Jerusalem. Go back and read the book of Jeremiah. That's exactly what happened during that time when Nebuchadnezzar came up against the Jerusalem and was overthrowing Jerusalem. False prophets started telling the king, Zedekiah at that time, don't listen to Jeremiah. They even put Jeremiah in a pit down in a well to shut him up. This is the same thing that happened to Jeremiah. And because of their lawlessness, listen, what does God mean when he says lawlessness? You say, well, lawlessness means that they're sinning. No, lawlessness is breaking the law of Moses to a Jew. So why is that abounding? They're going to totally forget. Now remember, they went back to the animal sacrifices. They went back to the Mosaic law at this time. They did it in the first half. So he's getting ready to stop it. He stops the sacrifices. I'm going to see that right here. And lawlessness starts to abound, and the love of many grow cold. But